Hello, and welcome to the Proactive Caregiving Podcast. As a CPA with over 20 years as an industry accountant, Jessica stepped away from the corporate world to become a full-time caregiver for her mother. Having learned invaluable lessons along the way, she is now here to share those with you and to invite you to join her on this caregiver's journey. Here is your host, Jessica Cannon.
Proactive caregiver, and I specialize in educating others on how to be proactive by empowering you, the caregiver. If you cannot take care of yourself, then you cannot take care of your loved ones. And what better way to learn how to do this than to learn from other caregivers? I'm talking about those who wanted to run away but stayed the course out of love or even marital obligation, regardless of potential burnout. The unmentioned heroes working a thankless, emotionally, financially, and even spiritually draining role out of love. Today's interview is the follow-up from How Does Dementia Affect Caregivers with caregiver advocate, LVN, and radio talk show host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. After discussing her personal experiences of how dementia affected her life and marriage, I felt it was necessary to discuss whether dementia should be a public health priority. Check this out. After experiencing all of this, all the way to his end, do you think dementia should be a public health priority?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I'm a baby boomer. I'm going to be 65 in December. It's going to be a tsunami. The silver tsunami. I even told Social Security that when Matt was there. I said, you better get ready.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see this. More younger people are getting it. People in their 40s, 50s. Before 65 is considered younger onset or early onset, which is what Matt had.
Right.
You're going to see it. And it's global and it's epidemic. And I've been saying that it's epidemic for years.
Right.
It's a global epidemic. It's going to cost the government, Jessica, so much money.
Exactly.
So much. It's going to drain Medicaid.
Yes, Medicaid and even Medicare to an extent, which puts the pressure on the rest of the society to continue contributing to Medicare. And this is, it's easy to dismiss and say, this isn't our fight because you're the one that's dealing with it. But what they don't see in the grand picture is that we're all affected by it. You know, everyone on some level is going to be affected by it. Rates for Medicare are going to go up just in response, and even restrictions possibly for Medicare would be increased so that it's not available the way it is now, just so that they can save their dollars for whatever purpose. But this is, like you said, the silver tsunami that's about to create something that no industry is ready to handle.
Yes. You're going to see, if I had money to invest, I would invest in a small group home. I think you're going to see more small group homes popping up because the baby boomers do not want to be warehoused in a large facility, or they want to age in their home.
Right.
And they're going to have a different approach. And the younger the parent, the younger the child. So you're going to have younger caregivers. My son was 25 or 26 when Matt, and 15 or 16 when his grandmother had it. So you're going to have younger caregivers. Are they going to give up college?
Yeah.
How are they going to have and 1 in every 3 people are being diagnosed with some kind of dementia.
Exactly. And that's the scary part.
Yeah, it's a public health crisis, which there's no cure. And you know what, Jessica? People think, oh, I'm healthy. I won't get it. It's not my family. I won't get it. Doesn't matter.
That's not the
Matt was
case.
healthy. Matt was healthy.
Mm-hmm.
He was healthy, other than his brain. So there's very healthy people who have gotten some kind of dementia
Mm-hmm.
and not in their family at all,
Yeah.
which is, it boggles really my mind. I find Alzheimer's and other dementias to be fascinating in a
Mm-hmm.
way. It baffles the doctors. There's no rhyme or reason to this disease. It's not, it doesn't run a straight path. You don't know when you're going to die. You know
No.
you're going to die from this, but you don't know when. You don't know. Everyone progresses differently.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Right.
Some people live 4 years, some 20. Nobody knows. Um, as you have comorbidities with it, like diabetes, heart disease, kidney
Mm-hmm.
disease, problem. They say prevention, but the thing is, this disease could start 20 to 30 years before.
Exactly.
So, how do you prevent it? Okay, you could eat right, you could exercise, try to avoid being a diabetic or heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
If it runs in your family, do what you can.
Exactly.
But sometimes, no matter what you do, you're going to get something if your genes are against you. But do what you can to stay away from those diseases. Diabetes runs in my family very strongly on my dad's side. Right now, I'm pre diabetic. I watch what I eat. I'm not overweight. I hope it goes down a little more,
Mm-hmm.
but I fear being diabetic. No, and even though I'm watching myself, it's in my genes.
Right.
Like they say, no one gets out of this world alive. So, do what you can. And if you get diagnosed, live your life.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it define you. You're more than your dementia if you have it. Live your life, go out while you still can enjoy it. Um, that's what I have to tell people, and educate yourself and live life to the fullest. Celebrate everything. Doesn't matter if your loved one remembers or not. Matt didn't remember. I celebrated anyway. And I'm glad I did.
Good. Good. That leans to the quality of life no matter what.
Yes. Oh, you know what, Jessica, before I forget, it's interesting with Medicare. A lot of people don't know this, but I know this because the hospice nurse told me. I've heard this from other people. There's different protocol for someone with cancer to be in hospice versus someone with dementia to
Mm.
be in. When Matt was interviewed, when the nurse came in to do the intake, she said, Matt talks? And I said, yes, he talks sometimes. I'll pretend I didn't hear that. Otherwise, he can't go in hospice.
Mm.
And the other home nurse, hospice nurse, she said to me, Matt talks? I said, yes, sometimes he does talk. Oh, he can't be in hospice in 3 months and gets reevaluated if he's talking.
Wow.
I said, well, that's ridiculous, number one. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, you mean to tell me he's hallucinating his rear end off, incontinent, needs help with everything, but because he said something coherent when you're here, he can't be on hospice? That's ridiculous. She said, well, it's not me, it's Medicare. I said, well, how come someone with cancer could talk? Oh, that's different protocol. I said, well, they need to change that. I said, but don't worry, he won't be here in 3 months anyway. And he wasn't.
Mm.
But that's not right.
No, it's not. And that's something that when at the very least when we need something in a company or an organization that would be able to step in and help, the very least we don't need, for one, them not believing the caregiver, and then two, coming back that when they finally believe you, then there's this red tape to say, oh, nope, sorry, we can't cover them because of these reasons. It
Yeah.
was it was hard understanding when I realized that I could lean on hospice and be able to help mom by having this service provided to her. I had to come to terms that what it meant until they explained to me, oh no, you don't have to be like imminent death. It doesn't have to be like you're going to go in the next 24, 48, 72 hours. You can be on hospice for 60 days, 6 months, 6 years, depending on how it works. So they gave me this promising, like, this can work, until she was on hospice and I started to hear those little bits and pieces as well. This is how it works, and this is, if it is depression, we can cover this. If it's anxiety, we don't cover this. And I thought, that's odd that you're actually going to split the how do you decide and how do you determine the difference between the two? And they'll cover certain medications but not other medications. So heart related medication they would cover, some psychotic medication they would cover, but the part of the comfort that she was needing for like the acid reflux and other things, they wouldn't cover. So it's really odd. And these are the things that caregivers don't know. And so it makes it really difficult when you're stepping in, and especially someone like you, being a nurse, would know far more than the average caregiver who doesn't have any of this knowledge medically to be able to say, to know what questions to ask and answer in response to what they're telling them, that this can or can't be one way or the other.
Right. And I think, my opinion, I think hospices all over the world better start thinking, like I told that nurse, you better start thinking outside the textbook, because not everyone fits a textbook picture of someone dying. The younger the person with Alzheimer's or any dementia, they might be walking around and dying.
Right.
They may not be bedridden and dying.
Right.
They could be terminally agitated and walking. And this is going to be a new area. I've always been ahead of my time. You're gonna see more of this, and they need to listen. I told that social worker, you need to listen to the caregivers. We know our loved ones better than you do. You need to listen.
Exactly.
And I told them, I'm telling people in my group, don't take this crap. You need to speak up when there's an injustice. Because if we don't, things won't change. We had to speak up when our loved ones aren't being treated right. And they think they could treat people with dementia any which way they want to and get away with it. And they do get away with it, because I filed formal complaints and they didn't say anything wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have, I guess, money or you're a very prominent person, then maybe they'll listen. But when somebody falls, they're supposed to come out and check on that person.
Right. These are the areas that need spotlights on, and the more caregivers can voice it and learn how to become their loved one's advocate, then the more we can actually start creating change. And it's going to end up being, what I believe is, the caregivers are going to end up educating Medicare and hospice and other doctors and neurologists and explaining, because I remember years ago when I finally asked for a second opinion for my mother, the first neurologist she was seeing said, she's okay. She's doing fine. She could keep driving, even though we had mentioned she's driving on the wrong side of the road. So there's areas that definitely need improvement, but it's going to take us sharing our experiences and spotlighting what's happening so that we learn from them. Everybody learns from this before it is at the point where that tsunami is knocking at everybody's door. I mean, it's building, and I believe it's even starting to affect industries, but it's going to get a lot worse before it even begins to get better.
Oh yeah, there's a guy, I interviewed him, Rick Edelman. He created the Edelman financial engine, very big financial company. And he has a podcast now. What's it called? It's Your Future, I think it's called. Something like that. My mind just went blank. And it was in November and last November, and he was talking about Alzheimer's research, and
Mm.
how financially devastating
Mm-hmm.
this disease is.
Yes.
Oh, the truth about your future. That's what it is. He had the truth about your money. This is the truth about your future.
Right.
And I said, oh, I got to get him on my show. And I'm surprised he came on.
Mm.
um, and it is it's going to be a financial devastation. And that's another thing. The younger person is with Alzheimer's or whatever dementia, it's a financial devastation to the family.
Yes.
Matt was 56. He
Right.
had at least 10 more years of work he could have done.
Mm-hmm.
His income was cut in more than half.
Right.
So that's another, issue. You're going to see a lot of issues coming up. People living together, like the Golden Girls show,
Right.
because they can't afford to live by themselves.
And that's
That's going to be
it's sad and it's
very
scary because it's the earlier the person is diagnosed or even affected by dementia and they can't do their jobs, which early onset is rising and that's coming more of a thing, then they can't even apply for Social Security until they're 65 unless th're able to get a disability diagnosis.
right. And
Right?
yeah, sometimes that takes a while. What I recommend, you need documentation
Mm-hmm.
up the wazoo. You
Yep.
need to have doctor's notes, documentation from work. I was very fortunate. I had documentation from Matt's employer, Matt's doctors. The person who took our interview is for Mass Social Security. Her dad died from early onset.
Mm.
She said, oh, my dad was 67. I know what you're going through. I'm putting you on the fast track.
Yeah.
And we got it without a problem.
Good.
But a lot of people do have problems. And the younger you are, I don't even know if you could apply for services. When you're 60, here where I live, you could get senior services. But what about if you're 50? What about if you're 45?
Right.
Then what do you do?
Right. Well, and in addition to the fact that you mentioned earlier that the younger caregivers are having to care for their parents, and if they're the millennials that are in that mid 20s, mid 30s, what do? How do they get assistance and when they can't even work a job because they're caring for their loved ones?
Yeah. It was very difficult for Josh. Josh was able to work. I told him to go out. Um, and that's a whole nother show of children or adult children or
Mm-hmm.
young children with caregivers.
True.
They need to vent. They need
Yes.
to be able to come to the parent and vent, and don't judge them. They have a right to a life. Let your kids enjoy their life. Tell them to go out. Josh went out every Friday. I told him to go out. Even after his father died, I said, yes, go out, enjoy life. That's what your dad would want you to do.
Right.
Um, Josh would say, oh, I don't like changing daddy's diaper. Alzheimer's sucks. No, and you're right, it does
Mm-hmm.
suck. And I don't like changing his diaper either. You
Exactly.
know, um, you have to let them vent. And it's so important, Jessica, that when a parent, guardian, when you cut off communication with your child, you know what your child is going to do? They're going to go out to the street. They're going to get advice that you don't want them to have
Mm-hmm.
from someone who's not experienced. Be
Exactly.
in the game for acceptance. Take drugs, take alcohol,
Right.
and have a problem. Be depressed. Be suicidal. Even this has happened,
Yeah.
um, and parents, you need to really keep those lines open. Get your child help if they need it. Go for counseling yourself. I did. I still do.
Absolutely. I agree. I do the same.
I'm not ashamed of it at all. And
Mm-mm.
I've been a mental health advocate for many, many years. And the pandemic brought mental health to the forefront where people are now a little more accepting of it. But we need to accept help and that it's not a weakness. People think, oh, I failed my parents or my spouse, my partner, because I had to place them. No, that's not failing.
No.
You know, our loved ones sometimes need more help than what we can give them because we're not skilled. We can't do 24/7 care.
No.
And it's not failing. I don't want people to ever think they failed. It's not failing. And if you cry, that's not a weakness. It's not. It's a strength. You've been holding in so much. You know, we're taught to hold it in, stifle it, be strong, be
Exactly.
Superman, Superwoman. Let me tell you all, it's a bunch of crap. Okay? Old school crap. Acknowledge your feelings, validate them. You don't have to
Yes.
be strong. Cry if
Yes.
you want to. I cry. I don't care. You know what? I don't care what people think. I cried in front of Josh. He's cried in front of me. Why do
Mm-hmm.
I have to be strong? And please, people, don't ever tell anyone to be strong if you see them cry because their loved one is dying.
Right.
That's wrong to say that. I'm
I
going to say it.
agree. Gosh, I agree.
You know, like I said, I'm a Jersey girl. I never straight up. I'm my dad's daughter. Uh, you know, people told us to be strong. I felt like saying, let me see how strong you'll be.
You're right.
What if you was one dying? Um, this mentality of being strong all the time is what gets people into trouble. It's why people have a nervous breakdown because when we
Mm-hmm.
stifle our feelings, it's going to come out. It could come out as a physical, mental illness.
Right.
Go, you know, if you need to take an anti-anxiety, antidepressant, then get it. Then do it. I can't take medication, so I didn't take that. But hey, if you need it, you're under doctor's care, take it. It's really, no one should ever judge anyone
No.
for crying. We're human beings. We're not robots. We're human beings. And, you know, people think, oh, we got to put on this facade of strength. No, you don't. You know what? Sometimes I cry talking about that, and sometimes I don't. I'm fine today talking to you. Sometimes I get choked up. If I get choked up, I get choked up. That's, you know, that's it.
Right.
That's how it is, and grieving is a whole nother. Well, that's a whole nother show. But
That's another topic.
yeah, how society, you know, it doesn't accept really loss or how to deal with it, and it's really sad. But I'm doing in my own little way using my shows, and my group. I'm trying to change how people think, and doing my part because there's so much that we've been taught that's wrong.
Yes.
Um, I feel really bad for my mom because my mom, God bless her, she's 92. But when my brother died, she never saw anyone die in front of her before. That was her son. She would not go for grief counseling. She's like, I don't air my dirty laundry. That's the way of thinking back then.
Yeah.
You didn't talk about it.
Right. And that creates problems now. That's what I've tried to have my mother have therapy, and even in her later stages, still trying to provide opportunities for her to express and talk about her feelings. But she, even now that she's more of like the 5-year-old in mind, she's still taught that we don't talk about those things. We don't express
Mm-hmm.
those feelings. We just, that whole suck it up buttercup and just deal with it and get back to life and go do what you got to do and don't let it get you down and be strong. And this being strong is Our idea of what strong is actually what's breaking us down.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Yes. Yeah. I'm very open. I've been very open about caregiving and dealing with my own grieving. And I'm at the point, like, I really don't care what people think. I'm getting too old for that. um I grieve openly. I even did a show like probably 3 years ago now, almost 3 years ago, where I called it "I don't need your permission to grieve." If I want to talk about Matt, I'm going to talk about him. Why do people think you're supposed to stop talking about somebody because they died?
Right.
I'm not ever going to stop talking about Matt. He's the reason why I went in my car, why I started advocacy. He's the reason why I have Chatting with Betsy, why I have a support group.
Right.
Matt will always be my inspiration behind everything.
And I'm so happy that you did that, starting your support group and starting your radio talk show, because it came out of that same place that it has for me, that if things are going to change, then it's going to be up to us to get the stories out there. And the more people you reach and the more people we reach together, then the more we'll actually help others and keep them from having to face the same issues and problems and heartbreak and frustrations and hair-pulling moments and wanting to reach through the phone to strangle somebody. Keep them from having to go through that as well and actually make a difference.
Yes, yes. And self-care, as you know, Jessica, is very, very important. I'd say it's a matter of life and death, because
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
The caregiver.
Absolutely.
If you want to enjoy life during caregiving, you have to take care of yourself. If you want to enjoy life after caregiving, you have to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
Because so many caregivers die during caregiving or right after. They die. And that's sad. So take care of yourself. I'm very grateful that I made it through 10 years of caregiving, plus 5 with my mother-in-law. So that's 15 years altogether.
Yes.
And I'm very grateful that I'm basically healthy. I have some issues, but praise God, He got me through. And with my sanity intact, although some people might say no. But I'm very blessed, Jessica, and I'm very grateful that I did make it through. And I didn't always take care of myself. It's hard. It's hard to balance that. If I take care of myself, then I'm not with my loved one. Then you feel guilty because you're not with your loved one.
Right.
But you need to recharge your batteries. That fine balance, it's very difficult at times.
It is. It is a very fine balance. And I'm glad you're actually learning how to work within that balance and that you are taking care of yourself. So, yeah. Betsy, I totally appreciate the time that you've given me to share your story. It's a very energy-filled, heartbreaking, but at the same time, I'm glad it turned out the way it did for you, because now you have solid information to turn around and teach others and help others.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on, Jessica. I enjoyed it. Thank you for letting me share Matt's story. I know he's smiling.
Good. Until we get a chance to chat again, I want to ask and pray that you continue to work on your self-care, because honestly, when it comes down to that, that's our only form of prevention at this point, is our self-care. Once again, Betsy shares only bits and pieces of how frustrating and heartbreaking a caregiver's life can become. We face areas that we never expected to and have to learn on the fly. Not everyone is an LVN like Betsy and faces even more struggles in not knowing what to ask or how to address medical professionals. The main point here is we are all in this together. Each of us has a role to play, and most of the time, we may not want to. Most of the time, it's because it's hard to say, I don't know. While other times, we know exactly what to say, but face too much industry red tape. Thank you for joining in and listening today. You can find more about this topic on the blog at www.proactivecaregiver.com. I hope this gave you more food for thought. And until next time, be proactive. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. We really hope you've enjoyed this episode. To learn more about proactive caregiving and to hear other episodes of this podcast, please visit www.jessicalazelcannon.com. This podcast is produced by Cannon Light Media, LLC, www.cannonlightmedia.com. Music provided by Chris Paradise.